The first warning came not as a shout, but as a tremor, soft, almost polite, running through the hull of the UNS Resolute. Commander Elias Rourke felt it through the deck before the sensors confirmed it. A vibration with purpose. External clamps. Something large had settled against them like a predator choosing where to bite. Contact, the tactical officer said. Voice level but tight. Single vessel. Size, sir, it's a flagship. The bridge lights dimmed automatically as red alert bled in from the edges. Displays flared to life, flooding the air with cold data. Mass readings that made no sense, energy signatures that dwarfed their own, hull geometry that screamed ancient and confident. Rourke stood from his chair, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't raise his voice. Bring them up. The alien transmission filled the bridge without warning. No static. No delay. The image resolved into something tall and angular, plated in dark iridescent armor that caught the light like oil on water. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were too still. I am High Strategist Zalvrenth of the Carthel Dominion, the being announced. Its voice was layered, harmonized by machine precision. You have been intercepted in sovereign space. Sovereign according to whom? Rourke asked mildly. A pause. The alien's head tilted a fraction, as if cataloguing a defect. According to those with the power to enforce it, Zalvrenth replied. Your vessel will power down. You will submit to boarding. Resistance is unnecessary. The word boarding echoed softly in the bridge. Rourke glanced at his crew. They were steady. Pale, maybe. Focused. Not afraid. Not yet. Commander, the communications officer murmured. They're not charging weapons. Rourke nodded once. Of course they aren't. He stepped closer to the display, meeting the alien's gaze with deliberate calm. This is a human exploration vessel, he said. We are not at war. Zalvrentha's mandibles flexed, an approximation of a smile. You are irrelevant to the concept of war, it said. You will be studied. Your ship will be catalogued. Your species will be corrected. Behind Rourke, a junior ensign swallowed audibly. Rourke did not blink. What if we refuse? He asked. The alien's tone didn't change, but something colder slipped underneath it. Then we disable your engines and board anyway, Zalvrenth replied. This is not a negotiation. It is a courtesy. Rourke exhaled slowly, as though considering a minor inconvenience. He turned his head just enough to speak without breaking eye contact. Engineering, he said. Status. Drives intact, came the reply. But sir, they're locking us down. Countermeasures are. I know, Rourke said. Thank you. He faced the alien again. You're welcome to try, Rourke said. The pause this time was longer. Your species displays a curious misunderstanding of inevitability, Zalvrenth said. We will not destroy your vessel. We will take it intact. Observe. The transmission cut. The ship lurched as invisible forces wrapped around it. Consoles flickered. Power levels dipped, not enough to cripple them, but enough to make a point. Boarding spikes incoming, Tactical called out. Multiple vectors. Seal bulkheads A through D, Rourke ordered. Redirect auxiliary power to internal control. Let them in where we want them. The words hung in the air. The helmsman turned. Sir. Rourke finally sat back down, fingers steepled. They chose boarding, he said. That was their mistake. The first spike punched through Deck 7 with a sound like the ship screaming. Metal buckled inward, glowing red at the edges, then cooled as something massive forced its way through. Atmosphere vented, alarms howled, then died as internal systems compensated. On the security feeds, armored figures poured through the breach, towering, confident, weapons held openly. Their movements were measured, ritualistic. They advanced in formation, banners etched into their armor, lights gleaming. They expected resistance. They found empty corridors. Contact. One of them clicked over an open channel, their language translated automatically. No defenders visible. Proceed, another replied. Humans retreat as anticipated. Rourke watched the feed in silence. Deck 7 sealed, operations reported. They're contained. Good, Rourke said. Activate internal protocols. The ship changed. Gravity shifted by 3%, imperceptible to humans, destabilizing to anything calibrated differently. Corridor lighting dropped to emergency red. Doors closed in sequences that made no sense to an external observer. Walls reconfigured, passages narrowing, angles subtly wrong. On the feed, one of the aliens stumbled, catching itself awkwardly. "What is this?" it demanded. Rourke allowed himself the faintest smile. "Commander," the Marine liaison said quietly, "teams are in position." Rourke nodded. "Hold." Another boarding spike struck. Then another. The Resolute shuddered under the weight of invasion. "Multiple decks breached," Tactical said. "They're flooding in." "Let them," Rourke replied. On screen, alien squads advanced deeper, their confidence intact but fraying at the edges. Doors sealed behind them without warning. Lights flickered. A low hum resonated through the hull, subsonic, unsettling. "High strategist," an alien voice crackled through a shared channel, urgency bleeding into formality. "Human vessel interior is irregular." Zalvrentha's reply came instantly. "Maintain formation," it ordered. "Humans rely on deception. They lack the discipline for prolonged resistance." Rourke leaned closer to the console. "They don't understand," the ensign whispered. "No," Rourke agreed. "They really don't." A human voice cut across the alien channel without warning, calm and unmistakably bored. "Just so you know," the Marine said, "you're standing in a kill zone." Static. Confusion. A sudden spike of movement as alien weapons came up. Then the feed went dark. One by one, screens across the bridge blinked from motion to nothing. "Sir," operations said softly, "we're losing contact with their boarding parties." Rourke straightened. "Log the time," he said. He looked at the silent display where the alien flagship still loomed, vast and arrogant, its guns quiet, its hangars open. "They came aboard to take a ship," Rourke said to no one in particular. "What they don't realize is this." He leaned back, eyes cold. "They just stepped inside humanity." The first alien died without ever seeing a human. It was a simple thing. Pressure differential. A door that sealed a fraction too fast. A corridor that narrowed just enough. When the alien's internal suit compensators lagged by half a second, its chest collapsed inward with a sound like cracking ice. Its body folded, armor screaming as joints failed. The others halted, stunned not by death, but by how quietly it happened. "Report," came the clipped voice of a squad leader. "What caused the failure?" No answer followed. Only the low hum of the ship, deep and omnipresent, as if the Resolute itself were breathing. Elsewhere, Commander Rourke watched a different feed. His expression never changed, but his attention sharpened. "Gravity variance holding?" he asked. "Stable at 3.2%, engineering replied. "They're compensating, but it's sloppy." "Good," Rourke said. "Keep it uncomfortable." Across the ship, bulkheads shifted on hidden rails. Hallways that once ran straight now angled subtly, confusing depth perception. Emergency lighting painted everything red, flattening shapes, erasing familiar cues. For humans, it was disorienting but manageable. For the Carthal, whose spatial instincts relied on rigid symmetry, it was dislocation bordering on vertigo. On Deck 9, an alien squad advanced with growing caution. Their formation tightened. Weapons rose higher. Their armor lights pulsed as internal systems recalibrated again and again. "This vessel is resisting," one of them said, voice strained. "It is architecture," another replied. "Nothing more." The statement lacked conviction. A hatch slid open to their left. Nothing emerged. It remained open for 3 seconds, then slammed shut with bone-crushing force. One alien lost an arm. The limb hit the deck, still twitching, black fluid seeping between metal grooves. Panic flared. "Enemy contact," the squad leader barked. "Visual negative, repeat, visual negative." A shadow moved. Not large. Not fast. Just there. A human marine stepped from behind a wall panel that had not existed seconds earlier. No dramatic shout. No flourish. One controlled burst. The alien leader's head snapped back, visor shattered, skull pulped. The marine vanished before the body hit the floor. Silence returned. On the bridge, an ensign exhaled shakily. They never saw him. They weren't meant to, Rourke said. Sir, Tactical added, Alien Command is querying internal sensors. They're confused. Rourke nodded once. They're used to ships being places. We built ours to be systems. Across multiple decks, similar scenes unfolded, not battles, but erasures. Human squads never advanced openly. They waited. They listened. They let the ship do half the work. Fire suppression foam flooded a corridor just as alien weapons discharged, blinding optics and clogging joints. A gravity spike pinned 2 aliens to the ceiling, snapping restraints. Ventilation reversed suddenly, sucking one soldier into a maintenance shaft barely wider than its shoulders. The screaming ended when the shaft constricted. The Carthal had boarded thousands. They began losing dozens every minute. On the alien flagship, High Strategist Zalvrenth stood before a tactical array that no longer made sense. Symbols representing boarding teams winked out one by one, replaced by error-glyphs and static. Explain, Zalvrenth demanded. A subordinate hesitated. Human vessel interior systems are adaptive, non-static. Our command links are degrading. Reassert control, Zalvrenth snapped. They are isolated prey. Another symbol vanished. Then 3 more. Zalvrentha's mandibles tightened. Open a channel, it ordered. The human bridge accepted instantly. Rourke appeared on the display, composed, almost courteous. You are losing warriors, Zalvrenth said, voice sharpened by irritation. This inefficiency will end. Rourke tilted his head. You boarded without permission. We allowed ourselves access as a gesture of superiority. That's one interpretation, Rourke replied. Behind him, the ship shuddered as another boarding spike embedded itself. Too late, too eager. You misunderstand your situation, Zalvrenth continued. Your ship is surrounded. Your people are being hunted. Rourke's lips twitched, not quite a smile. No, he said. They're being processed. The channel cut from the alien side. On Deck 12, a human fire team waited in absolute stillness. Their armor dampened sound. Their breathing synced. The corridor ahead was dark except for a single flickering red strip. Movement approached, heavy, deliberate. The Marines didn't raise their weapons. They waited until the aliens crossed the invisible threshold. Then the floor dropped. The deck panels vanished, retracting into the walls. 3 aliens plunged into an open maintenance void, gravity snapping back mid-fall. Armor crumpled on impact. One survived long enough to scream. A Marine leaned over the edge. Clear, she said calmly. Copy, came the reply. Seal it. The void closed. The corridor returned, pristine and empty. On the bridge, operations spoke quietly. Sir, alien boarding frequency is slowing. They're reconsidering, Rourke said. Do we want them to stop? Rourke's eyes never left the main display. No, he said. We want them to commit. As if summoned by the thought, the alien flagship launched another wave. Heavier units this time. Elites. Command cadres. Rourke nodded approvingly. Authorize Phase 2. The order rippled through the ship. Human Marines began moving forward. Not toward the boarding points, but through them. In a cargo bay that now served as a choke point, a squad cut open a captured boarding spike from the inside. Beyond it lay the alien flagship's docking corridor, pristine, brightly lit, perfectly ordered. The contrast was stark. The squad leader keyed her MIC. Bridge, she said. We have access. Rourke answered instantly. Proceed. The first human boot stepped onto alien metal. On the flagship, alarms began to sound, not for hull breach, but for internal intrusion. Zalvrenth stared at the tactical display as a new symbol appeared, small, sharp, unmistakably human, inside its own ship. For the first time in its long career, the high strategist felt something unfamiliar coil in its core. Uncertainty. Back aboard the Resolute, Rourke allowed himself a single breath. "They came to take us," he murmured. The screens flickered as more human signatures crossed over. "We're returning the favor." The alien flagship had never known intrusion. Its corridors were broad, immaculate, designed for ceremony and command, not resistance. Floors gleamed. Walls curved in perfect, confidence-inducing symmetry. Lighting was balanced to soothe the Carthal nervous system, calibrated for order and control. The first human bootprint ruined that illusion. "Atmosphere stable," Sergeant Hale murmured, visor scanning. "Too stable." "Means they don't expect visitors," Corporal Imoni replied. "Fan out. Quiet." They moved like a thought, not a formation. No banners. No declaration. Just humans spreading into a ship that had never planned for chaos. Back on the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Rourke watched alien telemetry degrade in real time. The enemy's internal network was rigid, hierarchical, centralized, brittle. The moment human code touched it, the structure began to fracture. "They're rerouting command authority," operations said. "Overcorrecting." "Good," Rourke replied. "They don't know how to improvise." On the alien flagship, High Strategist Zalvrenth stood rigid as reports stacked into disaster. "Boarding forces failing," one officer reported. "Human resistance, non-linear." "Reassert discipline," Zalvrenth ordered. Another officer interrupted. "Internal security breach. Unknown number. Human units." Zalvrenth turned slowly. "Impossible. Their ship is compromised." "They are not defending," the officer said, mandibles trembling. "They are advancing." That was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Human Marines moved through the flagship like a sickness, unpredictable, adaptive. They cut power to sections, then restored it in fragments, creating shadows where none should exist. Doors locked, unlocked, locked again. Alien squads rushed toward false alarms, only to find nothing but silence. In one corridor, an alien fire team advanced cautiously, weapons sweeping. Their commander raised a claw to signal halt. Something clicked behind them. A human voice spoke softly, almost kindly. "Wrong direction." The corridor erupted. Precision fire shattered armor joints, punched through visors. Humans didn't charge. They flowed, stepping past falling bodies, never slowing to confirm kills. The alien commander collapsed, staring at the ceiling lights flickering out. On another deck, an alien squad barricaded itself inside a command node, sealing blast doors and rerouting power. "We hold here," their leader insisted. "They must come to us." They didn't. The lights dimmed. Gravity inverted. 3 aliens slammed into the ceiling. One snapped in half. Another screamed until the sound cut off. The survivors fired wildly, bolts scorching empty air. Then the gravity normalized. Humans dropped from maintenance hatches above them, landing amid the wreckage. The fight ended in seconds. A Marine tapped her helmet. Node neutralized. Across the flagship, similar reports stacked up, though the aliens never heard them. Their internal communications were collapsing under the weight of contradiction. Orders arrived late or not at all. Units received commands that conflicted. Some were told to advance. Others to hold. None understood the pattern because there was none. Humans weren't fighting a battle. They were dismantling a system. Zalvrenth felt the ship shudder, not from damage, but from confusion. Internal safeguards cycled endlessly, unable to reconcile overlapping failures. "Why are they not withdrawing?" Zalvrenth demanded. An aide answered quietly. "They are not trained to retreat." That was incorrect. Zalvrenth knew it instinctively. "No," it said slowly. "They are trained to end." The realization struck harder than any weapon. Human doctrine did not seek dominance through display. It sought termination of threat. Once engaged, humans did not disengage to regroup, they pressed until nothing remained capable of resisting. On Deck Prime, near the flagship's core, Sergeant Hale paused at a sealed door humming with layered defenses. "Command hub," Imani said. "This is where they think." Hale nodded. "Let's give them something to think about." They didn't breach the door. They cut the power feeding it. Inside, alien officers stared at dead screens as the room plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting failed to activate. Panic rippled through ranks unaccustomed to blindness. A human voice echoed through the chamber, amplified just enough to carry. "This ship is now contested," Hale said. "Lay down your weapons and remain still." Zalvrenth listened from a secondary command node, fury and something colder twisting together. "This is an affront," it snarled. "I will not." The flagship lurched violently. "Report," Zalvrenth demanded. A damaged feed flickered to life, showing human marines at a reactor access point. "Its reactor. They're at the core," an officer whispered. "How did they?" Zalvrenth understood then. The humans hadn't needed maps. They'd followed logic. Every ship, no matter how grand, depended on the same truths: power, control, flow. Humans hunted those truths instinctively. On the Resolute, Rourke closed his eyes briefly as confirmation arrived. "Phase 3 complete," operations said. "They're blind." Rourke nodded. "Send the message." A channel opened across every remaining alien frequency. Rourke's voice carried, calm and unraised. "This engagement is over," he said. "You boarded a human vessel without consent. We have demonstrated why that was unwise." Zalvrenth responded immediately, rage stripped bare. "You dare dictate terms aboard my ship?" "You don't have a ship anymore," Rourke replied. "You have a liability." Silence followed. Not defiance. Fear. Zalvrenth stared at its displays, dark, fragmented, unreliable. For the first time in its long existence, it was not certain of outcome. "How many of you are there?" it asked. Rourke considered the question. "Enough," he said. The channel closed. On the flagship, human squads continued their advance, not hurried, not celebratory. Methodical. Final. Sergeant Hale checked his ammo, then keyed his MIC. "Bridge," he said. "They're breaking." Rourke's reply came without triumph. "Understood. Finish the job." Hale looked down the corridor, where alien resistance had collapsed into scattered, terrified remnants. "Copy," he said. The humans moved forward. And the flagship, once a symbol of unquestioned supremacy, began to die, not in flame, but in silence. The alien flagship did not explode. That, later, unsettled the galaxy more than any wreckage ever could. High strategist Zalvrenth stood alone in a secondary observation chamber, the primary command hub long since dark. The silence pressed in, heavy and absolute. Systems that had once responded instantly now lagged, hesitated, or failed altogether. The flagship still lived, but only in the way a body lives after the mind is gone. Reports no longer arrived. They ended. One by one, icons vanished from the last functional display. Boarding parties lost. Internal security erased. Reactor control compromised but stable, deliberately so. The humans had not destroyed the core. They had claimed it. Zalvrenth understood the message with horrifying clarity. This was restraint. A priority signal flared. The human commander appeared again, unchanged, composed, as if this were a routine exchange rather than the collapse of a legacy. "Your internal resistance has ended," Commander Rourke said. "We're disengaging." Zalvrenth's mandibles flexed slowly. "You could destroy us." "Yes," Rourke replied. "We're choosing not to." "Why?" Zalvrenth demanded. "Mercy is not a human trait, according to our records." Rourke paused. "Not for effect. For honesty. Because destruction teaches fear," he said. "Survival teaches memory." Zalvrenth had no answer to that. The channel closed. Across the alien flagship, human squads began to withdraw with the same discipline they had shown during the assault. No trophies. No final blows. They sealed compartments behind them, restored partial life support, stabilized systems just enough to prevent catastrophic failure. They left the ship broken, but alive. On the UNS Resolute, damage crews moved swiftly, efficiently. Hull breaches were sealed. Fires extinguished. The ship bore scars, deep ones, but it still functioned, still obeyed its crew. Sergeant Hale removed his helmet as he stepped back aboard, sweat streaking his face. All teams accounted for, he reported. Minimal losses. Rourke nodded. Well done. Hale hesitated. Sir, we could have taken the Flagship. I know, Rourke said. But then the story would have ended here. Hale understood. He always did. As the last human crossed back, the boarding spikes disengaged. The Resolute pulled free, thrusters firing weakly but steadily. The alien flagship drifted in silence, its weapons cold, its hangars empty, its command structure shattered beyond immediate repair. No pursuit followed. On distant sensors, neutral observers recorded the aftermath with growing disbelief. A Carthal Dominion flagship, immobilized, intact, silent. A human vessel, damaged, vastly smaller, departing unchallenged. The data spread. At first, analysts dismissed it as error. Then as anomaly. Then as threat. Within hours, intercepted alien communications flooded the galactic networks. Confused. Fragmented. Afraid. Boarding action failed. Human internal combat doctrine unknown. Ship behaved as weapon. Do not engage, repeat, do not board. On the flagship itself, Zalvrenth watched the human ship retreat until it vanished into the void. The silence that followed was not peace. It was humiliation. Never in recorded Carthal history had a flagship survived an engagement only to be abandoned by its enemy. Never had supremacy been dismantled without conquest. The humans had not claimed victory. They had delivered warning. Days later, in a secure chamber light years away, representatives of multiple species reviewed the recordings. The slowed feeds. The distorted audio. The calm human voices amid collapsing alien command. One phrase echoed across every analysis. You're standing in a kill zone. No threats. No boasts. Just statement of fact. Human ships were reclassified overnight. No longer exploration capable. No longer moderate threat. A new designation replaced them. Non-boardable assets. Back aboard the Resolute, Commander Rourke stood alone on the bridge as repairs continued around him. The stars ahead were quiet, indifferent. An ensign approached hesitantly. Sir, Command wants to know how to log the engagement. Rourke considered the question. Tell them, he said, that we were boarded. And the outcome, sir. Rourke looked out at the dark, remembering the alien flagship drifting, alive yet broken. Tell them, he said softly, that it won't happen again. The Resolute jumped to FTL, vanishing in a ripple of light. Behind it, the galaxy adjusted. Borders redrew themselves. Doctrines changed. Ancient empires revised assumptions older than human civilization itself. And somewhere in the depths of alien strategic academies, a new rule was carved into stone, transmitted across fleets, whispered with something dangerously close to reverence. Never board a human ship. Because humans do not defend territory. They end invasions.